What you're looking at here are hammer forms, patterns. What I want to do now is take these pieces and cast them out of aluminum. And to do that, this is another one. Fabrication can be done out of flat metal components and welding, but what I wanted to do is give them actually some real shaping. And what I use is this is a casting sand. It's a special sand that's bound with clay and oil, and it uses some alcohol or a naphtha to activate it. And it's an interesting process. I won't get too much into it, but give you an idea of where we're going to go with this. The pattern has been removed, and you can see it's been dusted, and that's fine. And right now, here's the flask sitting waiting to be poured. That on the top is to hold the reserve of aluminum so that as it starts to shrink, it will go in there and feed it as a reservoir. What else do I have here? That's about it. I've got, the total pour for this part is 5 cups of aluminum. I used a water displacement method in a bucket, and that's what I'm currently melting right now in that stove. Well, I poured this about 5 minutes ago. What you can see here is the flask separated on me. I should have wire tied it together here, and I didn't. That's on the back, so it's not going to matter. As long as the front's intact, I should have something still to work with. So I've got to let it cool down. There's a lot of aluminum there. I was heating it probably for about 3 hours to melt 5 cups worth of aluminum. That's been done. You can see this blob that oozed out, and that literally came out of this side here. I moved it away from the flask because I didn't want it to burn. I probably should have used a little bigger flask, just because you're supposed to be about 1 inch away from the edge of the flask, and I was probably about 1/2 inch. So I'm sure some of the heat went through the sand, and it's burning the wood as we speak, but I don't think the air can get at it. It should be okay. This is a shot after I've done the pour. I'm going to stop. I was going to dig it out, but every time I disturb the sand, it's just exposing more, and it's filling my shop up with smoke. So, and I've got a very small shop. It's about 10 degrees Fahrenheit outside, and I'm trying to vent it, so I'm losing all my heat. Anyways, we'll just let this sit. Maybe after dinner it'll be cooled down enough. I'll come out, I'll scrape the rest of the sand off of it, put it back in a bucket, and I'll be ready to do the next casting. So this is the part after it's been pulled out of the sand cast. Still quite hot, and I gotta grab a glove here, give you an idea. You can see how it came out of the flask. I'll slip a glove on here. And you gotta remember, this is the outside. We don't care about that. This part here is how you hold it in the vise with the square. That sprue gets cut off. It's the inside shape that we want. The sand broke away on me, and I knew it, and it wasn't going to be able to repair it. So, but that's all right. I'm going to just take the my bandsaw. I'm going to trim that off, and the inside part, which is what I want, is still good. It's a little proud here. I'm going to cut that off as well, and a little bit of dressing up, and that's gonna do. Whoops! I hit the a little bit of dressing up there, and that's going to be exactly what I want. And I'll just get the pattern. So there's the pattern sitting there beside it. You can see how it came out, and like I say, the back we don't really worry about, but I'll flip it over here again. Oh, it's hot. I cast this over an hour ago, about an hour and 10 minutes ago, but that gives you an idea of how to do a sand cast. And like I say, a little bit of trimming. It didn't come out perfect, but it's definitely salvageable, and it's plenty thick, so when I'm going to hammer the tin to get that shape, it can take a pounding. It gets over 3/4 of an inch thick. Well, I started out with this is a piece of wood and some Bondo, and that is a pattern, okay? And we ram sand around it, and we make a pattern. We pull the pattern out. That's where the holes are drilled, and it leaves a cavity. We close the mold, and we pour molten aluminum in it. And after that happens, that's the part. We get that part, which is relatively close. I mean, there's a little bit of finishing issues that it's not as smooth as this, but that's not really going to be a problem for what we're using it in this application. So it gives you an idea what that is, okay? And there's a little bit of a void in here, but again, for this application, this isn't an issue. All right, so then now we take the hammer form, and what we do is we put a piece of metal, we clamp it down there, oversized, and we hammer it away with different hammers, like a teardrop hammer, like that, and a small braid hammer like that to get into some of these little areas in here and to give us the shapes that we want. So we do that on a piece of metal, and then we end up with this. We end up with this part right here, okay? And it's a strong part because it's got lots of relief and bends and twists in it, and it works out good. So now we look at this, and I understand there's quite a bit of work to come from here to this to that. But now what we have is repeatability, okay? And we have a part that looks fairly good. Now, that part goes over here, and that's the rough hole, but what we would do is we would trim that out after we get this in there. And this part here, the reason what I would do is on a car, on my car when I get to it, I'm going to put that in. I'm not going to bother welding it because we're going to have the interior partly in the car. What I would like to do is just put some body adhesive on it, and you can see the relief in there, and you can see it up in here that has to go in. So that part now, it just slips in here like this, okay? And that's the notch. Oops, I got to just position a little bit better. There's the notch for the turbocharger, and then what you would do is trim it out on the other side prior to fitting it in, and that's going to leave us the notch for the turbo. Okay, you can see there's just a rounded part. Again, a little bit of trimming, we'll get that, and we'll swing around this way, and the same thing here. I would have to take a little bit more out just to give us this clearance that we wanted. So that's the first part that I've got done. The second part will be for this notch that's in here, and I want a curved piece of metal that's going to go in here. So what I've done, once again, same type of deal. We make a pattern. Okay, there's our wooden pattern. We wax it. We then make our hammer form pattern. You can see the holes. I've cast this part, and then what we end up with is this part here. Okay, and this is so you can clamp it in a vise. And here's the other part. I haven't done it. I'm going to start this part in a little bit, and that's going to be the notch for the exhaust system that's going to go into the passenger compartment. I want something curved. I don't want these square edges, and when you hammer a part out like this, it's very strong. It's not going to take away from the integrity of the firewall. Okay, so on to the hammering part next. This will just give you an idea of the beginning. What you normally do is you take the sheet and you start beating it down with a saw-face mallet, kind of like this, a dead shot. And then once you get it a little bit flattened out, you can put a block of wood in here, clamp it. It's in the vise sideways, give you an idea. And you just start working it around with a teardrop mallet, trying to get the curve in first. I'll have to change position and work this curve in the back, and then start to work this crinkle out in the middle. And the neat thing about it is that you can only hammer it as far as what the hammer form is. So eventually, if you kept hitting every little spot, you could flatten this right out and just make it look perfect. But it just depends on how much you want it to, how perfect you want it. The intent here is to give it some strength, some integrity, and make it not look like just a bunch of sections of straight metal that you curved and welded on an edge with right angle corners. I want it to look like it's a proper installation, in my opinion. Well, I've been pounding away at this metal here probably for about 15 minutes, and I'm starting to get the shape. Still got these high spots I've got to put a lot of there, but what I'm going to do is trim it off all the way around so I can not try to be pulling all this tension here on this upper section of metal. And it's got to be trimmed off yet, and like I said, get some more bumps out of it, but it's getting close. So with a little hammering and a little bit of trimming, here's the part, okay? And I've still got to do a little bit of fitting here on the body, but that part is going to go in here. So I'll get that fairly close. Then what I'm going to just do is I'll drill a couple of holes, or I'll actually have a Whitney punch. I'll just punch some holes, and then I'll ring weld from the back side. I'll clamp that into position, and that will give us the integrity back of the firewall. There's a test fit. When it comes to welding, I'll take a clamp and I'll pull that in, just to get a little bit better fit and do the welding. It shouldn't be a big deal.